Human trafficking. Anyone can be a victim. Real stories, staggering statistics, and extraordinary measures to combat the epidemic. I'm Serena Fazan, and we are On the Record.
Hi everyone, I'm Serena Fazan, and thank you so much for joining us for this special coverage on human trafficking, certainly an epidemic in the state of Florida. We rank number 3 in the nation. Joining me to talk about this very, very sensitive subject and very serious crime is Pastor Bill Lasasso with Restored to Dream. Appreciate you being here, Pastor Bill. And Tia, a survivor of human trafficking. Thank you so much, Tia, for being here and being so brave to talk about something that is just, gosh, you can't even wrap your heart around and your mind around. If you don't mind, you know, Tia, we'll start with you. Thank you for being here. Why was it important for you to be here and share your story?
Pastor Bill had contacted me about if I was willing to do this today, and I definitely feel as though I'm a survivor. You know, I remember a time when I didn't think that I was ever going to get out, but God saw fit to make that happen. So if that can happen for me, I would like to just spread a little hope.
And it did, and you're sitting here today, and I know that you have tears in your eyes, so you take a little break for 1 second, and let's talk to Pastor Bill and Restore to Dream. So Pastor Bill, why don't you talk about first, what is Restore to Dream, and why are you so passionate about human trafficking, which we all should be, stopping it?
Restore to Dream is an organization set up to bring survivors to a point of health, healing, hope, which they don't have. When they come into us, ages 5 to 56 so far, they have no hope, they have no dreams. They believe that no man will ever love them, no woman will ever trust them, no church will ever take them, and they don't know why they should continue. And I'm telling you, it's wrong. This is wrong what's happened to them. Not just physically, but the trauma damage to the mind is staggering. And it isn't like, gee, they got rescued and now they're okay. No, everything, they can be triggered, they can be hurt again, scared, all kinds of things they'll go through. And so we have a program that gets them in and starts the healing process and the dreaming process and the believing process that you can be who God wanted you to be, a star. You're sitting next to a star, Serena.
I know,
just
Tia's
so you know.
smiling. I know, Tia's smiling when you say that.
Yeah.
You know, so Pastor Bill, for those who might not know, explain to people what exactly is human trafficking.
Human trafficking is when you gain financially from either sex that someone or labor, force, fraud, or coercion. They were not doing this because they wanted to, whether it's slave labor in a field, whether it's sexual things they have to do. They were forced physically or fraudulently said, hey, here's a good job, and it's not, it's trafficking, or coerced. And coercion can even be just powerful drug addictions they get the girls on, and boys, by the way. But they will get them forced fraud or coercion to do horrific things, and they get no benefit from it. There is no benefit. The life expectancy is 7 years.
7 years.
Once they're taken, yes. And they die of 4 things generally: sexually transmitted diseases, overdoses, murder, and suicide. And that's one of our big tasks, is to prevent that.
Heartbreaking. Tia, let me ask you, are you okay?
Yes.
You're so brave for being here. If we can continue a bit with your story, this started happening to you right in your 40s.
Yes, ma'am.
So for people out there who think it could happen at any time, so as much as you're willing to share, what happened?
I came to Florida. My mother had retired down here, so kind of I didn't really have a strong, support system, church, these kinds of things in place. And so what happened was, I started doing drugs, and I was involved in some just uncomfortable, unhealthy things in my life. And once I started doing the drugs, it kind of gave some relief. It kind of gave relief of, not feeling really at home here, not being from here, never knowing where I'm at, not understanding directions or any of this kind of stuff. And, I was involved in a really unhealthy relationship. And so once the drugs started, I didn't understand exactly what all that entailed. I didn't understand that the drugs would take me to a place where I would lose everything, where I would lose my apartment, where I would lose all my storage and all the things I had worked for. I didn't realize how powerful that the drugs on the street were. And so what happened was, as I started slowly losing things, and it was during COVID, so, I'd lost my job and I was working, at a hard factory, not many job opportunities. And so I'd started on the drugs. And we didn't have supports in place. We didn't have church. We didn't have these kinds of things. So when the drugs started, it absolutely took over my mind and body and spirit. And what I found behind that was I was losing my apartment and I couldn't pay my light bill. And I couldn't work. But what I did have was a dope boy.
That's when the predators come in.
That's when they started coming in my apartment. And they kind of took over my apartment. And they were selling drugs out of my apartment. And then I couldn't go to work anymore because I'd been up for a day or two. And then I couldn't go to work anymore. And I was losing my position. But he was, a couple of them were in my apartment, selling drugs out of my apartment. And I knew I was losing my apartment. My landlord and my good neighborhood, nobody was happy. Nobody was happy. And the police were showing up, but I couldn't stop.
You were trapped.
Trapped.
So Pastor Bill, when this happens and she's trapped, how in the world does someone like Tia get out of it? Who has to intervene? I mean,
It has to be an extraordinary amount of things happening. We go on the streets and we actually work in a place called Wheelman, and we find the trap houses, knock on the doors. But somebody has to be aware of what's going on, whether it's someone in her life who would have noticed, whether it's somebody walking down the street, but they're scared to death. And what has to happen is you give a tip to law enforcement. We don't go knocking down doors, as tempting as it is, because there are weapons involved, there are all kinds of things involved. And law enforcement in this county is tremendous. They will do surveillance, and when it's time, they will make a move. Now, another way, in fact, in Tia's story, you would think it's a very sad thing. She got arrested.
But it was a blessing.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It was a blessing. And, and speaking of the numbers, throughout the show, we are showing two numbers, one for the Florida abuse line and one for the national human trafficking line. But getting arrested was probably...
Saved my life.
Saved your life. So by getting arrested, you were actually put in jail.
I was put in jail, and what happened was that physically I was in such bad shape. They had to put me in medical detox for the first 14 days. And so what it was I had like 3-pit edema, where my ankles were swollen, where my heart was beginning to fail.
Bless your heart.
Mm-hmm. So
but
what happened?
But you're here
That's
now.
right.
You're
Absolutely.
here now. You're here now.
And so what I can tell you is by coming into the DREAM program, so part of what they do is they help you with things like hygiene and clothes, and we get to go and do artwork with other survivors. And so I would get to go there every Tuesday night. I look very forward to it. A friend, a mentor, very close friend today, she brought me through. She was actually the first person to graduate, and she works with a lot of women in healing. And so she would come pick me up, or I'd meet her on Tuesday nights, and we would get to do our work together. And then she would drive me home. And then, so I started doing a vision board of like what I wanted my life to look like. And I did the vision board. And I was presented, I'm in drug court, so I was presented with an art challenge from Judge Todd to get to come in, and it would take some little bit of fines off. So what happened was I had asked permission with them if I could remove, because usually we don't remove our projects till we finish, but I had asked if I could take it, and they're like, okay. So I took it to Judge Todd, and I said, this is my vision board. And what happened was Judge Todd gave me $550.
Which paid for the court costs,
which
right?
which paid $550 of it,
Towards the court costs.
$550 off of like a $1,200 for the cost of supervision and fees through going through drug court. It's a very rigorous program where we get to learn about life skills and things like that. So what happened was is that it introduced me to doing art, and I further wanted to talk a little bit about been a big part of my healing journey. I was invited on a sailing trip with Restored till after church. We all met and we went sailing, and I was introduced to some, I didn't really want to talk about it. I just wanted it all to be behind me, but I was told that it's not that easy. So I was introduced to Miss Maria. She also works with Empowerment to Change, and so the two agencies kind of work together to work with us. And so I was introduced to Miss Maria, and I was rather hesitant, but I was kind of encouraged by people like, you might want to do this. Miss Melanie said, you might want to take Miss Maria's number down.
You might want to do this.
You might want to take Miss Maria's number down. So after I heard it from Empowerment to Change, and then I heard it from them, and then I met her, and I felt really safe with her, and I connected with her that day. I took the suggestion, so I started doing trauma work, and what I found out was that the human trafficking was really just unhealed parts from when I was a child and unresolved trauma.
And they have said that it makes people more vulnerable. Well, we have so many amazing people in this community. I do want to show your artwork, and I was going to do that prior, but I want to bring in some of these amazing people that help make this community better and who are working so hard. So we're going to go to a break, and we're going to bring in Representative Linda Chaney, who I'm so happy she's here as well, because she's really been working with you, Pastor Bill, in fighting human trafficking.
She's been a great champion for us. She understands the nature of this, and she doesn't like it.
She does. Joining us on this special coverage of human trafficking for the second half. We're joined by Tia, who is a survivor. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. So brave. Pastor Bill Lasasso of Restore to Dream. And joining us, Representative Linda Chaney, who I have to say, what did you say, Pastor, before we went to the break?
That she understands this subject very well, and she doesn't like it.
She doesn't like it and definitely wants to put a stop to it. So, Representative Chaney, talk to us on why you are so passionate about stopping human trafficking.
It started a little over 10 years ago with my church. And I was doing street ministry with my church, and I met a lot of the girls. For the first time, I started to understand what was going on. And that led me into the Pinellas County Jail, where I volunteered for about 5 years and met a lot more girls. And the one story that really stood out to me was the one girl who had the memory from when she was 5, sitting in the corner of a hotel room while her mother and her grandmother worked. So this was all that she knew. So in essence, she was enslaved by her family, and later by drugs. Crack, heroin is how the girls are controlled. And so what I realized out of all that experience is that unless there's change, there can't be change. And by that, I mean that we could, and this is what we did. We raised money. We sent them up to a facility called the Hooving Home in Garrison, New York. And they would spend 1 to 2 years up there getting clean from drugs, learning job skills, getting counseling and going through a lot of emotional healing, getting through trauma. And then if they came back and they had no safe place to go, you do what you know. So they needed a place to live, and some of them, we got them jobs. Publix, I'm proud to say, was a really great partner in employing. But unless the girls had a safe place to go, they were right back in the same environment. And so I realized we needed to change that. And fast forward, I met Pastor Bill, who Restore to Dream is in my district in Lealman. And he's been doing great work restoring the girls with classroom and various different kinds of things to help them get back into life in a very different way. But they still need a place to live. And so that's the reason that I filed a very significant appropriation with the state to request funding for the Restore to Dream, to give them a facility where the girls can live and expand their classrooms so that they can help restore more women.
I have many questions.
Right here in Pinellas County.
Yes, right here. I also have many questions. When you first started on this, were you in politics at the time?
No. I actually, it was a few years after my husband had died of brain cancer, only when he was 40.
So sorry.
And I had a 5-year-old, he was 4 at the time, so he was 5 when I was starting all of this. And so I was a single mom, dealing with all of my own struggles. And, God tells us, you serve him and he'll take care of you. And that's absolutely what happened.
So Representative Chaney, where does the funding stand right now?
Well, the funding will go to one of the committees to be heard and to be approved there, and then it'll move towards the budgeting process. And we'll know in a couple of months if we got the funding or how much we got.
Are you confident that you will get the funding, or what do you think? I mean, this show is unedited, unscripted.
Yeah.
We talk freely. How are you feeling about it?
Well, there's a lot of needs in the state, but I think everyone agrees that this is one of the top needs that we have. And so I am cautiously optimistic.
So, were you going to say something, Tia? No, I thought you were going to say something. I wanted to ask you both, why is Florida number 3 in the nation? Now, you do hear because we're a tourist state. We have a lot of migrant workers here as well. But what is it? I mean, why are we number 3 in the nation?
It's also easy access. You can bring girls in by boat from foreign countries, by airplanes, the highway system. So this is an easy place to bring people in, to move them around. There's a difference between, for example, girls who they force on the street, girls who they fly to Super Bowls, different places. It's an easy place to move and to hide, and that's a big thing. Plus, there's a lot of money here. Super Bowl, for example, you can not only rent a yacht, you can rent the girls on it. And you can order what you want. Yeah, so it's an easy access place, lots of money.
Are we seeing more boys being trafficked as well? Or is it mostly
the latest
girls?
Guesses, because nobody registers that, but it's almost 30% boys.
30%?
Well, that's the belief. A very big problem. It's so hard for a male to turn himself in and say, this happened to me. It's such a shame thing and a hard thing. And so many of them not only don't self-report, but then they have to go do survival skills, survival sex, and they disappear. One day they're just gone.
So when we talk about human trafficking as well, we're talking about people being brought into the U.S. as well as people already here in the U.S., correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and like my experience with, a lot of times it's generational, which is hard, it's like, right? But it's true, yes?
Yeah, so I had some unresolved issues, of family of origin issues. And I remember one time I was doing inner child work, and I was getting some success in that. But my therapist, I was getting comfortable and we were addressing those issues and working through it. But my therapist, she was a state therapist, and she got an opportunity to get her doctorate. She had her graduate studies, but she had an opportunity to leave where she was and work for another agency and then get her doctorate in the process. So I think it just like re-triggered like abandonment issues and stuff. So I never really, so then I didn't want to do that anymore. And so the pattern continued to play itself out. And then when, I started doing drugs, and that it was unresolved trauma. It was unresolved trauma.
And isn't that something, even if it's something that could trigger you that you may not even realize, someone who's trying to help you, but that trauma is so deeply seated. So Tia, let me ask you, as you sit here and you hear all the amazing things that Representative Linda Chaney, as well as Pastor Bill, what they're doing, how does that make you feel? Does it give you hope?
It absolutely gives me hope because I feel like, when I came out of jail, Empowerment to Change told me that I was a new creation in Christ.
And it's nice to see you smile.
Yes.
Nice to see. And you have such beautiful eyes. We don't want to see all those tears in your eyes.
And these are sometimes tears of joy.
Yes,
and
we
relief.
want tears of
A lot
joy.
of times, like when I go to church, I just cry, and I feel like it's cleansing. But I felt called to be here and definitely do this because when I talk about how amazing my life is today, I have a full-time job. On my vision board was that I wanted my driver's license. So I was able to study and get all my reinstatement fees paid and go through safety council. So I have a valid Florida driver's license. I just paid off my license plate. I got a car. So I have a full-time job, and I'm a house leader in my program now. So a lot of girls coming out in the same situation I was 10 and a half months ago, are coming out, and they're in my home. And I get to be the house leader. So yesterday I went and bought a new coffee pot. And, I get to provide the supplies. And I was encouraged with the art program, so.
And speaking of art, let's bring this up. And Linda Chaney, Representative Linda Chaney, I keep on saying your name because I like your name. As we bring this up, you were going to ask a question.
I was going to say that Tia is touching on exactly the reason that I'm asking for the money from the state for the Restore to Dream Center. It's because our system is sticky. Once you get in the system, you've got fines and fees and no place to live and no car and no job and no skills, and you're emotionally struggling and
the background challenges, I have to say, a biggest bar to employment is because I do have those charges.
Right.
And so finding employers that were willing, even though that I'm 2 classes short of a bachelor's degree, once you get those charges, all your work history and things don't always matter. So it was a challenge when I came out to find a job that was willing to
give you a chance.
To give me a chance, and I've had to work really hard, and I continue to work really hard, picking up extra shifts to pay those fines. But too, I wanted to mention just quickly about Restored. When I was coming out, they helped me with things like when I got my job, they helped me with work clothes. They helped me with work shoes. They did give me, they would let me, after we would do the art, we would get to go into the boutique and provide like hygienes and things like that, and give me work shoes, and they gave me work clothes,
And that's exactly my point. Without support, you can't do this on your own. You have to have a support system.
And we're taking this down, but I wanted to show this is a piece of your artwork. And Pastor, explain this to us. It's a bed, right?
Yes, what it is a broken chair.
It's a broken chair.
And so you have the back and the legs, and this was once broken, unlovely, unusable. And the girls make it into dog beds. And so they took something that was broken and made it beautiful again. And that starts the wheels. Maybe I can be pretty again too.
I love that. I love that.
The initial concept. And it isn't just for trafficking survivors, by the way. It's for any sexual trauma survivors. It could be familial. Your parents sold you. It could be your father, the sexual trauma to the brain is not just human trafficking, but yeah.
so much. Well, we so appreciate you being here. What can people do to help? What can people do to help get this passed?
Yep. Well, they can send letters to my office. We absolutely like to share the stories that validate the need. So if anybody would like to write to my office, write to me personally, linda.chaney@myfloridahouse.gov. And Chaney is Chaney. People get that mixed up. And then after that, we're going to do a big community fundraiser for Restore to Dream to make sure that they have everything they need to keep their program strong and expanding. And because there is so much more need than resources right now, we want to flip the script on that and make it so that there's more resources than need.
Wonderful.
Is that okay?
Fabulous. I'm going to start crying now.
You ready? Are you ready to get to work? Like really get to work?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And anything we can do for your organization, Pastor Bill?
Well, I think go to our website, restoretodream.org, and you can see some things. But in general, I would say this. Go get educated. There are people doing awareness training. Go there. But here's the difference. You'll get educated. You'll get upset. But ask for action items. What do I do now? I don't want to just get educated. I don't want to just get upset. What do I do? And so those presentations, make sure you come away with action items, 3 or 4 things you can actually do.
Wonderful. Tia, thank you so much for being here. Pastor Bill, great to see you. And Representative Linda Chaney, I will say what an inspiring woman and how lucky our community is to have people like you and leading us. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone so much for joining us for this special. We know it's a very, very tough topic, but it's something we definitely need to talk about. Please share the show because we need to get more attention on this. We usually put up a screen on so many places where I am that you can share this show. And again, thank you again so much for watching. We appreciate it.